Hey everybody, I'm Steve and welcome to Jerome's Chrome. If you missed last week's episode, some things happened. Long story short, I got the plugs and wires installed. That went okay. I got the fuel pressure regulator installed. That went fine, but the fuel pressure is a little high. When I went to check the timing on the car, I couldn't see the timing mark on the balancer with the gun. And it's not because I couldn't see the mark because the mark wasn't visible. I couldn't see the mark because the mark was on the other side of the balancer. It wasn't in view. And in the process of trying to find the mark, I was just moving the distributor back and forth, trying to see if I could find the mark on the balancer, and eventually ended up advancing it way too far. And then the mark was showing way after top dead center, even though the car was technically running before top dead center. That was kind of confusing to me how that could happen, so I just stopped, asked for help, got tons of awesome feedback and help in the comments, and now I feel like I'm way more equipped to be able to get this timing thing figured out, thanks to you. So today I'm going to dig into this car with a little more knowledge on timing and either get things right or find out what's wrong. Between the last video and now, I did fiddle with the distributor a little bit. I just backed it off, fired the car up, and just moved it around a little bit and tried to find the spot where the car sounded like it was running the best, and then turned the car off and started it and tried to find that little combo where it was running the best and starting the best. And it's a whole lot better than it was when we left off in the last video. Check it out. I promise I'll replace the battery cable in the next video, okay? I promise. Anyway, here's a cold start. Is it running like the day it rolled off the assembly line in St. Louis in 1978? No, not at all. Is it running way better than the day I got it? For sure. Do I feel like it's safe to start it now? Yes. But yeah, it still needs a lot of work, and even with it running better, when you put the timing light on it, the way it is right now, the timing mark is still not showing. So it's off the map. Off the grid, off its axis. I can't see the timing mark still. So I'm gonna get piston number 1 to top dead center. I'm gonna see where the timing mark is at. I'm gonna pull the distributor cap, see where the rotor is at, go from there. And I know that this engine may still have some major underlying issues, but right now, I'm just trying to get it close. I'm just trying to figure out as much as I can about the engine, and I'm trying to be able to at least back it in and out of my garage. I know this engine may need a refresh sooner than later, but I want to at least try. And if I can even just get it going pretty good, enough to just get it running pretty good and then get some other major things fixed on this car, like, brakes and stuff. If I could just get it operational and then better as I go, that would be the plan. However, I know that this car is in rough shape and things don't always go according to plan, so this thing will most likely have to come out in the future sometime. But right now, I just gotta find the socket that I dropped. Check that out already. A little dark. But it's dry for sure. So I'll take that. That plug's pretty black, but the fuel pressure and the carb aren't dialed in. I've been running it at horrible timing. So I don't think that means anything at this point. I'm just glad that it's not wet, and I'm gonna go from there positively. Time to find top dead center. So basically, I just gotta stick my finger in the hole for cylinder 1, crank it over nice and slow until I feel the pressure pushing my finger out. I'm gonna put screwdriver, straw, zip tie, something in there, and just crank it over until I can see the zip tie go up and then start to go down, or like right in that region. Should get us close enough to see if this timing mark is anywhere on the timing tab at all. I don't actually know if I'm gonna be able to crank on this and put my finger in there at the same time without some help, but I'm gonna try. Nope. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Well, the extension didn't work unless I take off the radiator hose. Maybe I can just do it by hand. Maybe I can just reach. No. No. I tried 6,000 ways to try to figure out how to get a wrench on the bolt and be able to crank it while putting my finger in the number 1 cylinder around this rad hose, and I don't think it's going to happen. So next step, I believe, well, I don't believe, the next step I'm going to do is take this radiator hose off and see if it gives me a little more working room to be able to crank on the front of the engine. And while I'm in there, I've been wondering what's going on underneath here. So I'm just gonna pull this water neck off to get the rad hose off, replace it with a new shiny one. And while I'm in there, just look in that intake and see how things look in there at this point in time. I'm definitely intrigued to see what's going on in there, because on the Vice Grip Garage episode, when he looked in there, I think he described it as mud, and it did not look good when he was flushing out this cooling system. And yeah, I know that it might be a pretty big issue, but I don't know how good the man flushed it. I assume it's still pretty rough in there, but there's only one way to find out. Yeah, I'm no cooling system expert, but I don't think that is ideal. There's definitely some sludge in there. Like that much. Not ideal. So yeah, that is just one little swoop of crusties that's in that intake. Decisions. Man. I'm just gonna ignore the nasty cooling system situation for now, which is, I don't know, maybe all this is kind of pointless. But I'd like to just find top dead center and see where this is at. Even if it's just, from my own personal knowledge of what was going on here. Well, I got it. I was actually really struggling to find true top dead center because since this header is in the way, it was hard to get like a screwdriver or anything in there to see it pushing out. So what I did was I took the valve cover off so I could watch the intake valve go all the way down, then all the way up, and then know it was on the compression stroke. So then I put this bore scope actually down into the hole. And then once I knew that it was on the compression stroke, I could just crank on the engine and then watch the piston come all the way up to the top and get a really accurate top dead center that way. So when this thing is at true top dead center, the balancer has no mark on there whatsoever. The timing mark is nowhere to be seen at all. But the rotor should be pointing right here, and that's pretty close. So that's where we're at right now. I'm not sure if that means the balancer has spun or slipped or whatever you call it, or if maybe somebody put on the wrong balancer. I'm not exactly sure. And I'm also not exactly sure how big of a deal the intake being full of all the mud really is. If that's something that I could eventually flush out of the system, if I should just replace the intake and the radiator and things and heads even, if I need to flush the block by pulling the engine, or if I can flush it with it all together, I don't know for sure at this moment. I do know that if I'm gonna replace the balancer and get in there and do the timing chain or anything like that, it's pretty tempting to throw a cam in there and get a couple extra horsepowers and such. So I got some thinking to do, and I would love to have your advice. What would you do in my situation? Somebody that a little kind of learning about cars. I got the balancer thing. I got the grotesque cooling system thing. We might have a little bit of issues with the heads and the valve seals and stuff, undetermined. Where would you go next? Throw it in the comments. I'm going to read through all those comments and take it all into consideration, do a little bit of research, and go from there. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for commenting. And thank you so much for hanging with me as I figure this stuff out. I really appreciate you watching. I'll see you next week.